Well, welcome to the Sydney Film Festival in conversation with Leah Purcell for her film, The Drover's Wife. Hi, Leah, and welcome.
Thank you.
Now, I'm interested in the origins of this because it was a play before it was a film. Why did you take this short story of Henry Lawson's as inspiration and really broaden it out?
Yeah. Well, when I was a little girl of 5 years old, my mother would read it to me out of the Henry Lawson book. And I knew I was 5 because in the margins or in the pages where they had a blank page, I wrote Dick, Dora, Nip and Fluff. And that was from your grade 1 readers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I never ever got the opportunity to ask my mother, was she a fan of, that's the Drover's Wife picture, was she a fan of Lawson? But she read it to me, she would recite it to me. I slept with my mum and I was a terrible sleeper, and I'd say, Mum, tell me that story. And the reason I think I connected to it was because it was the first time I used my imagination and saw myself in a story. So it was like my little film in my head while my mother would recite it. And I was that little boy. My mother was the drover's wife. Now, in reality, she was a drover in her early days. My grandfather was a drover and my great-grandmother were drovers. And but at home, there was no father around. So my mother was my mother and father. We had a combustion stove, so we had a wood heap. She taught me to split a log for chips, and she taught me how to stack a wood heap. And she would say, don't stack it holler. Snakes will get in under there, because we lived on the outskirts of Mergen. And, you know, that just stayed with me for, oh gosh, I was 47, 42 when I sat down to write it. And so 45, nearly 45 years it's been with me and just carried it with me. And it was, I went up in 2006 to do Jindabyne with Ray Lawrence, the film. And on my weekends off, I'd go for a walk, me and Bain, my partner and producer of the film. And we'd go for a walk and I'd look at the country and I just fell in love with it. And I said, we don't utilize this country enough in our TV shows or our films. And I said, I'm going to do something here. So we walked up to Mount Kosciuszko, and this is without a word of a lie, I yelled out, I'm going to do something on this country. I think it's going to be Drover's Wife, and I think I'm going to be in it. And it echoed around the mountains, and then jumped to 2019, and on the opposite mountain range, I'm singing out action and cut, and we're filming. So that's, and look, I don't, as I said before, my mother had passed away and I wasn't old enough prior to that to say why Henry Lawson, but it was just something that really stuck with me. And I wanted a story that I could get. Look, I was thinking, you know, I produced this as well with my partner. So I was thinking as a producer, trying to get an Australian story that will make my Australian audience come to the cinema, to claim the story, to own it, to know it. It had a following of an older generation, and also now it's brought back into the school curriculum. So there was a younger generation. And I said, what short story as Australians can we share? What stories do we love? And I said, and a vehicle for me to put my Indigenous family's story through it and come at it from a different perspective, come at it as a woman and a Black woman, and look at our history and be a truth teller for all sides, and for something that we can share in.
Well, it's interesting that the number of elements that you've brought into the play and the screenplay, and you're addressing Indigenous issues, domestic violence, racism. You know, you're packing a lot into this play and this film.
Yeah, it was just, look, if someone told me to sit down and write a play about, or a screenplay about domestic violence or racism, I'd run a mile. But they are stories from my personal life with the domestic violence when I was far too young and dealing with that. Domestic violence, the issue, Molly Johnson was dealing with that with 1893, and here we are in 2021. It's an epidemic in our country that women are dying weekly at the hands of their husbands or their loved ones. So it was something that And I actually tried to steer away from it in the writing. I said, I've done it before in Box the Pony. I looked at it through Black Chicks Talking with some of the other women that were in those stories. And I tried to steer away, and the urge just came. And I said, look, if my ancestors want me to speak on this, then so be it. Who am I to take out this yearning, this instinct in me if this story requires it? So I layered that in. And then the story of Yarika is actually my great-grandfather's story.
Oh, really?
Yes, about the South African circus, other than what happens to him, but the South African circus, being down in Echuca, trying to get back home. So it was an opportunity to put him through that story and make him the hero. For me, a lot of the Aboriginal men in our stories are not our heroes, aren't seen as the good guys. And I have good Black men in my family, my uncles, my cousins, my nephews, my brothers. And I wanted to show that. And my great-grandfather had passed away before I was born, but the stories that were told about him and how gentle he was and how loving and how hardworking he was for his family, that I wanted to show that. And I think at the time when I was writing the play, there was something on one of the social medias about Aboriginal men not being any good at anything. And I wanted to change that perspective and put this man to the forefront and make him the hero instead of the villain. And I wanted, also being an Indigenous person, I wanted my two leads to be Indigenous and put a Black man and woman holding this story together as storytellers, truth tellers. So it was just with Yarika's story, my great-grandfather's, one of his daughters, which is my grandfather's sister, had got one of her white daughter-in-laws to do some research, because as blackfellas we weren't allowed to go into those libraries and do the research at the time. Yeah, because of it was the massacres and all the stuff that are hidden from Aboriginal people. So she said she had a thesis to do, and she went in and got all this information. And my great aunt said to me, you can have this story, and if you get an opportunity, tell it. And tell it truthfully. So it sat in my, desk off drawer for a very long time, but it was just something that, and I've been given this ability to tell these stories, and I've got a wonderful following, and people trust me with these sort of stories. My audiences trust me. They know they're going to get a biffo around the ear, but we're going to bring it back with love and hope, and they want to go on that emotional journey. And I said to myself and to Bain, Bain said to me, actually, he said, if we can't tell our ancestors' truths, then who can? And it was important for me to put warts and all, everything in there, but have hope at the end of this film. And that was important to layer that. Gosh, and the landscape, talking to the elders up in that country, that first mist in the very first frame.
No, it's beautiful. Really
it's cultural. It's cultural. Like they said, when the first mist rose out of the valley, it was time to come down from the mountains because winter was coming and we'd go north. And when my Murray Fredericks, my time-lapse director photographer, went out to get that, he rung me on that morning and he said, I don't know, Purcell, I don't know who you're praying to, but keep praying. He said, I've had a valley of mist dance for me for over 2 hours. And he was amazed. And I just went, mate, that's the ancestors wanting me to tell this story.
But listen, at the center of this story is this woman, and you've imbued her with an incredible strength. Was that important to you?
Yes, yeah. And that was my grandmother. That's my great-grandmother. That's my mother. That's my aunties. That's me in there. There's a little bit of me in there. The Southeast Coast was ruled by a matriarchal society. Those Aboriginal women were the leaders. And I wanted to show that strength in her. And when we were debating, with my creative team, once we got into pre-production, someone says, when does Molly smile? And I said, when she does, it'll be the right time. Yeah. When she's vulnerable, it'll be the right time. But up until that point, she's earning trust from whoever she's dealing with, and the audience, you know, will get there because they will trust her, you know. So it was important to show that strength. And that's look, and that's just not Aboriginal women, that's women across the board that are living on the land. Because when we were up there filming it at Adaminaby in a little valley called Yayak Valley, the fires were coming. We beat it by a week. We had literally stopped filming, the crew had packed out, and the fires came through. And the local newspaper was sort of using us in comparison that, you know, there's a film being filmed here. It's about a woman in 1893 who's left with making these decisions about land. You know, her husband's not around. And there were women up there, 2019, making those decisions. Should we run? Should we stay? Because their husbands were out fighting property, moving their cattle. So it was so relevant. You know, it was so then, it was so now, and it was important. And those women, and I've had a lot of women who had seen the play, read the novel, had written letters to me and say, my mother has opened up about so much. And I'm not saying Indigenous women, this was women from all across the board. And they just thanked me for the story because they didn't realize that that was a part of their grandmother or mother's story when they were living off the land or in those times, or great-grandparents. And same with men that saw the play, would sit in the foyer and, you know, be sort of their heads hung very low over a red wine. And I'd go up to them and I'd say, are you all right? And they'd go, yes, I'm just thinking about the future of my daughter. I'm thinking about my mother. I'm thinking about my great-grandmother. And that's what you want in a film. I don't want people to be talking about where they're going for coffee. I want them to be moved. I want them to sit in the silence if they have to take a moment. And if I can do that to my audience, then for me, I've done my job. There's going to be lovers, there's going to be haters, but my general GP, the everyday Aussie, I think is going to get it and going to appreciate it.
Now, you, in both the play and the film, you have directed and performed the central role. What sort of pressure does that put on you?
Look, massive. I didn't direct the play. I was supposed to, but because the role was so big, and I just felt Letitia Caceres, had directed the thing, the play. But I'm so glad I had that opportunity to perform the play, because that held me in good stead for the filming. Yeah. Because I knew her emotionally. I had walked in her shoes. I think I actually got the shoes from the theatre. I said, have we still got the shoes? I'd like to wear them. But then they couldn't find them, so we had to get them new, but we modelled them off the shoes. So the pressure came to, look, I look at every day as a challenge. People said, what's the challenges? And I said, every day is a challenge. But it's about how you take on that challenge. And I every morning I'd wake up and I'd go, Mother Nature, what do you got for me? What do you got for me? What are you going to throw at me? So I went to work being prepared, being open, but also willing to receive and just going where I needed to go. The night before, done my homework, shot list down, ate something light, getting ready to go to bed. I go into the room and Bain was outside. We were in Adaminaby. He's packing stuff, ready for the car. And I think it must have been about 10:30. I got up and I walked out and I said, let's go home. And he went, I beg your pardon. I said, let's go back to Sydney. And he said, he was beautiful. He goes, well, it's a bit late to kick off. It's 5 hours. And he goes, don't you think it's be worthwhile, you know, having a sleep and getting up in the morning, and we'll go out to set and we'll see what happens, you know. And I went, I think, you know, I don't know what I'm doing. I think I've bit off more than I can chew here. And he goes, look, let's work it out in the morning. And bless him, you know, the morning came, we rocked up and the energy was there. The crew was ready to go. And, you know, of course we were going to do it. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. The trickiest thing was our time restraints with our children and the animals. Other than that, they wanted to be there. They didn't want to, you know, I'd have to shoo them off set and I'll say, you'll get me in trouble if you don't leave. But we just, you know, me and Bain, we pride ourselves on working with team, with big collaborators, we're listeners, and we wanted everyone who was involved, from the best boy to the grippy, to the electrician, you know, to the person that was helping there to just help out, that everyone felt that they were part of a family and that they were part of this team in making this film come to fruition.
How, I mean, it sounds like you've got a very strong relationship and healthy and supportive relationship with your partner.
Yeah, I am very lucky, and he is a beautiful man spiritually. So, and he believes in me. He was the first person who actually said, Leah, I think you're quite talented, you know, and that was in our very early stages of our relationship. And he always supported me and pushed me out the door to go and be adventurous and do things. And then he's such a massive support. You know, when we came to Sydney, we were all we had. I couldn't get an agent for ages. And he was all I had. So he had to step up into that management role. And now he's stepped up into the producing of our production company and our slate that's, you know, that we've been doing, the books. It was all his ideas, Margaret, when I was writing. So I was I'm doing the play, coming home at night, writing the film. That's how I wound down.
Oh, wow.
I'm a workaholic. So I would wind down, be influenced by my audience, be influenced by the conversations I had in the foyer. And then I'm halfway through this, and one day he comes home and he said, I got you something. Now, he loves shoes, so I expected a new pair of shoes. And he goes, I got you a book deal. I could have threw a book at him. And I said, Darl, I'm trying to get everything else done and sorted. What do you mean? I failed English. You know, what are you doing to me? A novel. And so he's out there hunter. He's the hunter. He's out there gathering and you know, and hustling for us and believing in what we do. So I'm very fortunate to have someone that has that love and that ambition and that I have as well.
Yeah. Now, listen, also, you know, I mean, you've been on a trajectory from very early on, over what, 10 years, well over 10 years.
Yeah, well over 10 years in the direction. Yeah, 30 years in the industry.
Working towards this, is this always where you wanted to end up, directing a feature film?
Yeah, I think I did.
Sorry, I've got nose. Go on.
No, you're right. Yeah, no, I think I did. Writer-director, it's pretty special, you know, in the understanding and the layers and the journey you go on, taking something from an embryonic stage and then hearing people say your lines. When Jessica DeGao and Sam Reed said those lines in that scene around the bed and then in the jailhouse while Molly's in the background, I went, man, they're saying my words. It was such a thrill. And me and Bain looked at one another and he goes, I think we've got a film on our hands here. You know, that experience is, you hear it in your head, but when it comes to life with great actors, it's the biggest thrill. I don't need any drugs. I just need my creativity. You know, that's my hit up. So, you know, it was very exciting to hear that. And I think when I was a kid, I'd go to our family barbecues and there'd always be 20 cousins and I'd always directing them. I'd do a production. People will say, Leah, what do we got tonight? And I went, well, I'd always have something, you know, up my sleeve for a family performance. And I got my break in the sense of commercial TV, ABC with Redfern Now, when Darren Dale pushed for me to come on as a director. I had done short films prior, but it was my first TV and he really believed in me and gave me that leg up, which gave me that confidence. And then after that, you know, they say the rest is history, where I got work and an opportunity and you know, it's just been an awesome ride. You got to bloody work hard to get there.
Well, you've been working hard for a number of years on this, getting to this point.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a lot of young people, I mentor a lot of young people and they go, what is it? I said, you just got to work so hard. You got to dig deep. I said, there's more rejections than, you know, open arms, come and do your stuff. I said, you got to thick skin, believe in yourself, got to have the talent, but work hard and have a support like a Bain Stewart around. And they go, where can we get one? I said, I got to clone him. I could make a bit of money.
Now, listen, all right, casting. You know, Rob, you know, is so fabulous, you know.
Yeah, look.
Charismatic on screen, you know.
Yeah. I worked with Rob when he was fresh out of NIDA and he was a mature student and it was Clever Man. And I remember watching him go through that and we would have a couple of conversations and as I said, me in a mentor role. He goes, when can I go? And I said, mate, don't leave nothing in the tank. You go right now. Give it your all. And just watching him grow through that. And then, he went off and did other things. And, I go, Yarika's Rob. It's him. And then, of course, gave him the script, and he rung me immediately. And he said, whether I get this job or not, he said, I just want to tell you that this is an amazing story, and I haven't been moved and cried with the script in my hand ever. And he said, so thank you just for that experience alone. And he said, and then when I said, well, if you want it, it's yours, I let him hang on for a little bit and went back to him. And then when we sat down and spoke to one another, and I said, Rob, we are representing, as blackfellas in this film, we've got a nation behind us, many nations behind us and holding us up. I said, so we got to bring it, brother. I said, we can't leave anything. And he said, I'm with you. And that's what I wanted. All of my actors said, I'm with you. I gave it an opportunity. I said, I'm the director, I'm the writer, I'm your lead actress. I'm in your face. I said, I know your lines. I said, so if there's a time where I am mouthing your words or you're sick of me and you don't want me there to support you in your close up, you can tell me to walk away and I'll go away. And I said, and you can tell me to shut up too. I said, but you get one chance. But I wanted them to know that I was aware of that, and I wanted them to feel that they had control of the character and do what every actor does. Find the emotion, find the heart, take it to another level, and that they felt comfortable in approaching someone who wore so many hats. And I did listen to him. I did that in the play, and I did it in the film. Even on set, there'd be mornings I'd rock up and I go, we don't need any of that and any of that. Just this is the beat. And, they're going, Leah, but some of those are iconic lines. And I said, it doesn't matter. It's all good. I've spoken to the writer. She's fine with it,
Now, listen, so many people say the key to a film is the casting. You've got to have the screenplay, but you've got to have the right people in the right roles. Now, how did you decide on Sam and Jessica and even Malachi, who's such a great kid?
Yeah, look, of course, producers, distributors, they had a long list of names for those characters. And there were some big names in there and all of that sort of stuff. And I went, yep, okay, I'll have a look at it. And I turned around and said to them, but the right person, the right people will come. And they said, Leah, don't get spiritual or, out there with the fairies on us just yet. This is a big budget film. We're going to get this right. And I said, yep, but I'm just letting you know that I believe the right people will come. And they did in Sam and Jess. And when Sam and Jess heard about the filming, heard about we were starting with casting, I had fallen in love with Sam Reid's acting in a film that he did many years ago called Belle. And he played a Brit in that as well, period piece. And I remember watching it, and I watched it for the fair-skinned black girl that was in it and her journey, something that I could relate to. And then I remember saying, who's this fella? And I looked him up, and I looked him up and I said, oh my gosh, he's Aussie. And when Sam was chasing me, I'm chasing Sam, we finally connect. And he's actually from Jindabyne. He's a mountain man. And I went, you kidding me? He said, no. He said, where you're about to film, I'm on the next range over. And I went, Sam, you're it. You are, Nate Klintoff. And he goes, that's beautiful. And the challenge for him was to come to this story and this country with virgin eyes. But he's a man that has grown up and worked the land, and he said, that's a great challenge for him. And I said, mate, it's yours. And then Jessica had read the play and a friend of a friend just said, your gal's trying to get to you. And I said, I'm trying to get to her. So, it just happened. Fate brought us together. The right people came, and they knew that me and Rob were the leads, but they were so supportive. They collaborated, great conversations were had, and they were perfect. No one else could do those roles but them.
How difficult is it as a director for you to recognize that rightness?
Yeah, it was for me, when we did meet in person, we barely spoke about the screenplay. We spoke about politics. We spoke about how they, you know, essence of the script we brought up, but we spoke about their everyday beliefs, their lives, and they understood the undercurrent of this film. And that, to me, that's intelligence. And intelligence in writing and story is a priority for me, where the undercurrent, that you're getting the essence of it. And then the next thing was physicality. Sam had walked that land. Jessica's been away from home and coming back, being in London for so long. She brought that essence of Louisa. It was that essence that I go by. Physicality, a different intelligence. We weren't patting each other on the back, you know, carrying on. It was really in-depth conversation. And that's what got it for me. And I wanted them, as a director, I want the actor to find their understanding of it and take it to another level. Yeah. You know, and when they brought their emotion in that scene, when they're in bed and the beautiful light, mate, I started watching, you know, my little monitor under my little tent, and, you know, 38 degree heat. They were in a small house with no aircon. And I started watching it like, I said, I'm watching a film. I said, wow, it's alive. And I know, and when I got that essence, and I said, we're going to be fine. This is alive, and it will breathe, and it will be what it needs to be. And with Malachi, now this is a great story, if you can all bear with me. Okay, I'm so proud to say that we registered over 2,000 young people across Australia, Indigenous people of all shades and colour, of all walks of life across the country. And Nikki Barrett said that's one of the biggest responses she's ever got. And Nikki Barrett knows what she's doing. Yeah. And over 2,700, or nearly 2,000, beg my pardon. And so Nikki broke it down for me. And then I with kids, I look at physicality. Are they coordinated? Do they play sports? Because it helps with timing. It helps with them understanding their body, hitting marks, so it's more of a natural thing for them. Malachi Dower Roberts, red hair, freckles, black fella from Glebe. Don't you love it? You know what I mean? Big family from footballers, the Roberts family, Bundjalung mob, you know. So, and he on his little piece, he said, I'm a dancer. I dance with Tribal Warrior. And I went, okay. So I put him in a pile, and you look great, mate. So then I went out and I was looking for some other Indigenous kids that had a bit of experience. So I got about five of them, all different shades of colour, all came to Sydney for a tryout. And what I normally do is just throw a cat amongst the pigeons. And I said, to test these boys out in their physicality, I'm going to throw Malachi in. And so he was my wild card. I have a wild card. Tony Cogan in the play was my wild card, because in Showcase he had a great jaw, and I said, bring him in. But I knew Tony, but his headshot looked totally different, you know. So Malachi, I said, throw him in. I got beautiful Albert David, ex-Bangara dancer, to come and hold the men's business workshop with these little boys. So Malachi's running 10 minutes late, but I had to start on time. These other kids had planes to catch. And I said, oh, them, you know, late, them glebe mob. So anyway, I started an activity. Malachi runs in, he's flustered. He said, sorry, we had a flat tire. And I look at him, and in my head I go, oh my God, kid, you were better even in person. So I looked at him and I went, mate, we've already started, but jump in. Now he gave me a look that crossed his eyes that I won't repeat, that I think that he said in his head, like, you kidding me, lady? You know, it's not PG. And he looked at me and I looked at him. I said, I know you, mate. And I said, you'll be right, get in there. And I walked away from him and I started the game again, and I had my back to them. And it was like postcards. I gave them a scenario and I counted to 10 and I'd turn around and they had to create the picture. And Bain was watching them. And within 30 seconds, Malachi had control of that room. And I said, is that kid? And he said, yeah, it is. And I said to Bain, it's him. So the day's going, and he was supposed to leave. He was amazing in the dance. He was supposed to leave at lunchtime, and all the auditions were supposed to stay. I begged with his mum. She said, look, I've got to go get this tire fixed. I said, you go. I'll drive this kid to the end of the earth, wherever he's got to go. I'll deliver him. But please let him audition for me. And I gave him the script. He went away for an hour while the other kids were coming through. And I was watching out the window, and he was humbugging around and bucking around, and he wasn't, you know, being studious. And I'm going, oh, this kid. Anyway, the others went, and look, the other kids did a beautiful job, but there was just something about Malachi, you know, once again, that essence. He had this confidence, and you need that in kids. They need to be confident. Anyway, I brought him in, and look, and I fell in love with him even more, because when he got the script, he started to go, hi, where is my dog? You know, and I went, I said, stop. I said, you're not a reader. You don't like reading out loud, eh? And he said, no, I don't. I said, neither do I. I said, let's throw that script away. I said, you repeat after me. And he was parroting me, and he just got it straight down. And he said to me, he said, Aunt, if you give me a week, you give me 24 hours and I'll come back and I'll be deadly. I said, I'm going to give you a week and you're going to be even deadlier. So I said, you come back to me. So when he comes back to me at Nicky Barrett's, he's in this private school uniform. And I'm going, who the heck are you? You know, his hair's all brushed. He's got his tie on. And I went, Malachi. He goes, yeah, I got a scholarship for footy over at one of the prestigious schools over at Ryde. And I went, oh, my gosh. And then he's looking, and I'm being the wanker director talking too much. And I go, Malachi, you look like you want to say something to me. He said, yeah, I do. He goes, you know my dad. And I went, oh, your dad. And I went, Roberts. And I went, oh, my goodness. I said, is your dad Malcolm Roberts? And he said, yes, it is. Now, Malcolm Roberts was a little boy that I discovered when he was 10 years old, a little bit younger than Malachi, in Glebe, blonde afro hair, on a scooter, when I was casting my very first short film. And I wanted his dad, and we were part of an initiative. And how's that, hey?
No,
I thought I couldn't employ your dad, but I'm going to employ you. But I was so glad I didn't know that going in to the process, because Malachi won that on his own merits. And I didn't feel like I was being biased to the other boys or anything like that. But what a story, eh?
Yeah, it's an amazing amount of serendipity in there.
Yes.
Listen, Mark Wareham, your DOP, I looked it up. He shot your very first drama.
Yes.
Yes. 10 years ago. No,
well, over 20, yeah. With the short film, yeah.
Yeah. Was it 20?
Yes.
Oh, Jesus. All right. That's scary.
Yeah.
But, I mean, why did you choose him for your feature?
Yeah. Look, me and Mark, as I said, we go back 20 years. And there was a reason why Mark Wareham, Richard McGrath, my first, 10 years with TV, Louise Johnson, my script supervisor, continuity, 10 years with us working together on TV. Danny Cooper, editor, 20 years. She and Mark edited, and he was DOP for my very first short film, Auntie Maggie and the Wamba Wacoons. But I met Mark through Bain again. And Bain was very good friends with Mark's older brother, who's a producer, Andy Wareham, from Taxi in Queensland. And we'd met just knocking around in Queensland, and I knew Mark was doing what he was doing. We worked together on Beastmaster on the Gold Coast, and then we just got talking. And we're Queenslanders. I loved his energy. He's mad as a cut snake, but works so hard. We've got the same work ethic, and he was, on his rise through the ranks. Yeah. And it's about trust. He's a brother. He's my artistic brother. We call each other brother and sister. And if I had to have my arts family, he's my big brother. And the trust that we had. I trusted him so much, Margaret, that in the scene where Molly's looking out the window and she's singing to the mountains, in my head, tears are flowing in one take that didn't make it. Tears are flowing. I'm like, this is my Oscar nomination here. I'm going to win, with this performance. And Mark comes out from behind his little curtain, because he was all in black. And he goes, pull it back a bit, I reckon, sis. And I went, you're lucky you're my brother and I know you. But that's the way it was on set, and I trusted him. And he was absolutely right. And he got me to the performance I need. So it was all of this trust that we had. And Mark's brilliant at what he does.
Yeah.
He's
really made a mark for himself.
Yeah, and people respect him. Look, and he can be a hard taskmaster. You've got to. I am as well, to get the perfection that we're striving for. We never want to get there, but we want to strive for it. So our work ethic, every day, we'd be trying to top one another and bring something. And I'd go, what about this? So it was that beautiful, I guess you could competition, but in a respectful and respecting each other's experience and expertise, you know, and listening. We were listeners. We would listen to one another. And I think it's really important, the marriage between your director, your DOP, and your editor. Danny Cooper was amazing. You know, she was up on the country there editing, and she'd be giving us, you know, she'd be talking to us, and she'd go, I think we need something like this. And I went, yep, no worries, you know, and proud and very humbled to take that note and try to see if we could deliver it, you know. So,
well, she is certainly one of the best in the country. She's
yes,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah. And you know, and she
had a good crew around you.
Yes, and that was vitally important. It had to be. It's my first feature. It was a big budget feature, you know, not your normal first-time director feature budget. And my funding bodies wanted to know that there was people around me that I had a working relationship with, and that they could trust, and they would know that they would speak their mind to me. And so be it. I would be asking that as well for the amount of money that was coming through, and also our private investors, knowing that I had a team around me. And Bain was the fourth one or fifth one to that party, that I knew that I could trust him at times where I'd just look at him when I was acting and he'd just shake his head, and I knew to just go again, don't waste time, you know, because time was important, because I had to come out of the acting, grab the monitor, re-watch stuff. But a lot of it was instinct. If it felt right, you know, and I'd look at all 5 of them and they'd all give me the thumbs up, and we'd move on so we could get through it. And the trust was big.
One last question. The fact that Indigenous stories by Indigenous filmmakers have just escalated wonderfully over the last 15 years. You were part of that too. And it must be an exhilarating feeling to be in that situation. You're great storytellers, and you've taken over the reins.
Look, yeah, it is extremely exciting and humbling. Like, I remember watching Warwick Thornton, you know, when we would meet at these initiatives. He was sort of the benchmark we were all trying to get up to. His sister, Erica Glenn, I remember watching, you know, coming up. I was very blessed and lucky. And mate, they put me through the mill. Don't worry about that. It wasn't all sisterly love. But to have Sally and Erica as mentors, pushing us to find and to strive for excellence, you know, in what we did as an industry, because whatever we did had to be better than the rest, you know, and to be a part of that family is so important. And, you know, and then to show, you know, and when they talk to me about my film, they're excited for me, you know, and it's a beautiful, beautiful family. And mate, we're all very competitive. Don't worry about that. But, you know, it's beautiful that we've got this family in the Indigenous sector of our wonderful industry that are very supportive, and you know, we all like to challenge one another and set the bar, but it's beautiful competition. And I'm very proud and stoked to be a part of that family and part of this journey of Indigenous people having the power. We're not just the you know, the consultant, but to have the power to be the voice behind our stories that our grandmothers, our mothers have personally experienced. You can't beat when you've got my grandmother sitting in her bed, crippled with arthritis and Parkinson's disease, telling us her journey about when she was stolen. And that little scene in there where Molly throws that piece of paper on the fire, that's all for her, and that represents her and a nation and many generations of that. That's something deeper. And what I love about that is that this film has 2 stories going. There's one for my wider community and my one broader audience, and there's also a blackfella yarn going on in there. And I'm proud to say that everyone's going to get something.
Leah, thank you so much. You're so great. You're so alive. You know, congratulations on the film. It's great to catch up with you again. And thank you to the Sydney Film Festival for organising this.
Yeah,
it's been very enlightening. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Margaret. And yes, thank you to Sydney Film Festival. And yes, thanks.